Hello everyone, this is part 63 of What If Naruto Had Two Bloodlines, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more. Naruto felt that he knew who was really responsible for the death of the soldier S. He just couldn't figure out exactly how it was executed. Without explaining it to everyone else, Naruto made his way into the palace and looked around for the guardians. Alright, where is a disclosed location? Kohaku's uncle and a handful of soldiers were sitting around. Like always, they had to listen to his incessant complaining about the comfort level of the current hideout. Relief finally came when the hooded figure arrived. You said that you were going to end this so that I could finally take my rightful place as feudal lord. What happened? The hood replied, but I risked exposure if I did it then. I tried to wait for the right time, but those hired ninjas spoiled it with their investigation. I might have also given away my identity to that censor that they have by taking care of the soldier S. You're welcome for that distraction, by the way, a voice called out from behind the hood. They all turned to see who it was as the hood said, it was a good enough distraction, Shin. It bought me the time I needed. Yeah, but what do we do now? I figure that my identity is already known, so I'll just leave it up to the others. I'm sure that they'll finish off the feudal lord and his family, and you'll finally be able to take the seat of power, my lord. The hood bowed. Naruto looked frustrated and everyone else looked confused. What are you doing? Azumi questioned. I'm looking for someone. Who? Takumi asked. The one, you know the one. You should all know the one I'm talking about. Clearly Naruto had forgotten exactly who it was that he was searching for. No matter how much he tried, he couldn't clarify what he was trying to say. He explained to them that there was another traitor besides Shin, and from him talking about the one, they figured that he was talking about one of the people that were missing at the moment. We have to find them quickly, Yamato stated. What can you tell us about them and their abilities? Shino asked. Ayumu took this one. Daisuke is an excellent fighter, but he's a medic nin. Kuki uses lightning-based jutsu, Yo uses water-based jutsu, and Yuzuki wields her weapon with great expertise, but other than that, we don't much else about her abilities. She hasn't really had any reason to go all out. Naruto couldn't match the names to the faces, and so we have to find them immediately. We don't know which one Naruto is thinking of, so we'll just have to question them all. Hinata, do you want to finish up on Kohaku's injury? Sakura asked as if she was a little ashamed. Why would I do that? Because you're better at this sort of thing than I am. I've seen you STCH severed limbs back on with your jutsu. That's nice of you to say, but don't you think that it would be best if you were the one to see to Kohaku's recovery? It can be a great learning experience and motivator to become better. Sakura agreed. Yeah, I guess you're right, Hinata. I should have some faith in myself and improve where I'm lacking. It's just that, lately, I've felt that I've been lacking in a lot of different areas. Hinata wasn't sure of what to say. She wanted to reassure Sakura that she was being her own worst enemy, but didn't know how to go about it if that's just the way she felt. If it were Naruto, she was sure that something would come to mind to make him feel better, but this was Sakura. Hinata knew her, but she didn't feel that she really knew her the way she did Naruto. The shinobi scattered about the palace in search of the missing four. As dawn came, they regrouped outside the feudal lord's bedroom. They then revealed their findings. I found Kuki in the kitchen going through the fridge, Ayaka said. Yo was in the restroom, Shinitsu revealed with a slight blush and an embarrassed expression. I saw Daisuke in the hall, Takumi said. Then, what about Yuzuki? Did anyone find her? Everyone shook their heads. Then Yamato was interrupted by Shinitsu. There's no way. It couldn't have been her. She wouldn't have done something like this. I'm sure she's somewhere here in the palace. No, someone's chakra signature is missing, Naruto confirmed. But I still don't know who it is exactly. So then, where do we go from here? Shinitsu asked. Lead Naruto to the others while everyone searches again, Yamato suggested. First Naruto was led to the kitchen. After clearing Kuki, Naruto joined him in raiding the fridge. They were then off to the restroom to find Yo. The feudal lord's door opened and closed, surprising everyone inside. "Oh, did you want something?" Sakura asked. Naruto, Takumi, and Ayaka arrived at the restroom Yo was said to be in, but there was no one inside. Sakura, Hinata, and the feudal lord's family were now all trapped in a giant cube of water. It was hard to move around in. If something wasn't done soon, they would all drown. Maybe he's in another restroom, Ayaka considered. They decided to give this a chance and scoured the palace for Yo. The only problem was that there were so many restrooms within the palace that checking each one would take some time. Also searching for a missing person was the other Leaf Nin and the remaining guardians. Just about every hall and room of the palace had been checked when. "We've been looking all over for you." Back in the feudal lord's room, Hinata and Sakura struggled to stay alive. Everyone trapped within the cube was, but Kohaku was helpless. She was asleep when they had been captured so unexpectedly. They didn't know how much longer they could hold out as they were fading fast. All of a sudden, the door opened. Sakura and Hinata began feeling the water heat up. The next thing they knew, they were breathing air and coughing up any water that they had swallowed. Hinata and Sakura woke to the sight of Yuzuki across the way. With a sorrowful look, she walked over to the unconscious princesses. She shifted her weapon to her side as she grabbed one. Both Hinata and Sakura watched as she began giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Kaidi. Sakura then proceeded to check on Kohaku. Hinata heard a shuffling sound outside the window and went to check it. She saw a figure leap down and run off into the woods. She then heard Shinitsu say, "That jutsu, it can't be." Hinata was about to ask what she meant, but Naruto bursted into the room. He looked worried. He, and everyone behind him, was assured that everyone was alright for the moment. All the remaining shinobi in the palace gathered inside the feudal lord's room. It was then that they discovered. "I felt more chakra signatures leave. With the ones left, I guess we know which of the ninja guardians are the traitors," Naruto said. Other than the Leaf Nin, there were 7 guardians left, but Shinitsu commented, "And they were some of the strongest shinobi in our group. I can't believe this. So what do we do?" Kiba asked. "Since they just left, they'll probably regroup and come up with a plan of action. For now, we should get as much rest as we can. If they decide to come back, I'm sure that we'll have to put up some fight if we're going to protect the feudal lord and his family," Yuzuki said. Everyone agreed and went to rest up for the possible upcoming battle. Yamato would personally see to it that the feudal lord and his wife were safe for the rest of the night. Hinata and Sakura stayed with Kohaku and Kaidi. Naruto entered to check on the 2 sisters before trying to get some rest of his own. "They're fine, Naruto, go rest up." By what Shinitsu and Yuzuki said, "We'll have our work cut out for us, and we'll need all the help we can get," Sakura told him. "I'll be fine, I just wanted to make sure that they were alright. They've been through so much recently. I just couldn't help but worry a little." Hinata and Sakura were sitting by the bed on the floor. Naruto walked up and, to the surprise of the 2, sat right between them. Hinata instantly blushed. Even Sakura began blushing slightly. She didn't know why because he was always trying to get close to her, but this was the only time that she didn't feel like kicking him away. Trying to keep it from seeming like a big deal, Sakura tried to act like it really wasn't. Hinata, on the other hand, was panicking on the inside. She didn't know what to do or how to react in this situation. It was driving her crazy. Her feelings were taking over, and she wanted to tell him but refrained because she felt it would be inappropriate. Before long, she settled down as she followed Sakura's lead. They rested their heads on his shoulders and everything became more comfortable. The silence was soothing and they all began snoozing. "Ah, so you're finally here, I assume that you finished things," the hooded figure said. "We would've, but it went awry," a male voice said. "We got out of there after that. I humbly apologize for failing," a female voice said. "Don't," the hood said. "This just gives me the pleasure of killing them myself, I'll enjoy it very much." The door quietly creaked open and, not making any sudden movements, Naruto watched as someone approached. He then heard her say, "Kohaku, Kaidi, I'm sorry for this." Naruto was startled by the sudden movement of Hinata and Sakura. They had jumped up and were now holding kunais to Yuzuki's tea. She immediately dropped her weapon. With one of his tails, Naruto caught it and stood to his feet. I can't believe you of all people would be doing something like this, Sakura said. What are you doing? Naruto asked. Answer him. Sakura threatened. No, I mean the two of you, he said. You both acted before she could even do anything, she was just going to sit down. Kohaku, you're awake, but how long? Sakura asked. Since before Yuzuki walked into the room. I saw the three of you sitting beside the bed and didn't want to wake you, she revealed. She then caused them all to blush as she went on to say, it was so cute seeing you all snuggle together that I couldn't bear ruining it. As her blush slowly faded, Hinata asked, then, what was she saying before? After they backed off a little, she told them, I was apologizing for letting this happen, I promised Kohaku that I would look after her family while she was away, but I failed. I let my guard down and Kaidi, who I've often thought of as my own, was taken. My heart broke when I thought of the horrible things that could happen. Desperately, I searched all over for her, but, even with the help of my fellow guardians, I failed. It wasn't until recently that I realized why that was. I let myself get too comfortable because I thought of everyone as my family, and, like always, I let them all down. Tears began to form in her eyes. Kohaku tried to cheer her up. It's not your fault, you did the best you could. She turned to Naruto and the girls and told them, before becoming a guardian for my father, Yuzuki was once an elite shinobi in her village. After an incident that took the lives of her son and two daughters, she was in a pitiful state in which she couldn't do anything but grieve for them. After some time, and with nothing left in her life, she returned to being a shinobi. She poured herself into her work and retained her status of being elite. This caught my father's attention. She's been getting on in years, but I still believe she's as great as ever. She sat up and hugged Yuzuki. Hinata and Sakura put their weapons away as they began to feel sorry for Yuzuki and everything that had happened. Naruto handed her her weapon as he said, so what if you think you've failed here and there, the important thing is that you give it your all. With the help of real friends, I'm sure that we'll be able to get through this. But I don't want anyone else to I know how you feel, but, sometimes that's just the way it goes. The only thing you can do, is do your best to protect everyone. The hooded figure placed a few ninja tools into his holster and anywhere else he could put them. As he began removing his hood, he looked over his shoulder to say, you're coming along as well, Haraku. You and your personal soldiers may come in handy. The high and mighty man with the mustache reluctantly stood to his feet and beckoned his soldiers to follow. The hood fully removed his cloak as he gave the order to move out. Not long after, they exited the woods and were in sight of the palace. They were about to advance when they saw a bright golden light coming right at them. They quickly jumped out of its path, but a few of the soldiers were too slow and many of them were blown away. Well, ending this in one go is out of the question, a blonde-haired Naruto huffed to Yamato. You take this time to rest, keep an eye on the feudal lord and his family. Leave it to us, he told him. Naruto's face turned up as the others took off, leaving him alone on guard duty. A face-off was taking place among the 12 ninja guardians. On one side Hiroto stared into the eyes of Shin, Takumi stared at Yo, Ayumu at Ayaka, Shinitsu glared at Izumi, and Daisuke at Kazuki. How could you do such a thing? You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Yuzuki raised her voice. It's pretty simple, with the feudal lord's younger brother in the seat of power, we'll be given great power as well for helping him. We'll each be given riches for our services as well as our own little kingdoms to rule in this land, Shin answered with a grin on his evil-looking face. We trusted you guys, and this is what we get. If that's how it's gonna be, then we may as well settle things on the battlefield, Kuki said. Instantly, they clashed. The traitors quickly scattered and were followed. Fights began erupting all around the woods and the palace. Takumi, Kuki, and Yo. Takumi swung his trident about, trying to land a hit on Yo. Yo bobbed and weaved and barely avoided having his teeth slashed. He dropped to the ground as Takumi thrusted. At this moment, Kuki jumped in. He threw several shuriken and kunai but missed his target. Takumi spun his trident about and attacked once again. He swung his trident and Kuki jumped out of the way. Yo popped up and grabbed a hold of him. From there, Kuki came back and punched him in the face. Shin and Hiroto. Shin's great speed was a big advantage for him. He could easily attack and dodge the behemoth Hiroto's slower attacks, but it didn't help against Hiroto's hardened defense. From the start of the battle, Hiroto had activated his jutsu in which he encased his body in an armor of rocks and earth. Shin was beginning to get frustrated because he hadn't been able to do much damage and he didn't really have anything else up his sleeves. Ayaka and Ayumu, stand still and you can have all the dirt you want, you, flower child. When I put you down for your final nap, Ayumu tried to trash talk. Ayaka stopped to say, that wasn't very good, I know you're supposed to be bad and everything, but trash talking just doesn't suit you. Yeah, I think you're right, Ayumu agreed. I think I'd much prefer it that my fists do the talking. There was no complaint from Ayaka. Ayumu resumed attacking, but Ayaka just continued to dance around them. Ayumu punched at her face, but Ayaka spun under it while nearly sweeping her off her feet. Ayumu regained her balance and tried a straight kick. Ayaka gracefully spun around it and punched her in the face. Ayumu fell back, rubbed her cheek, and growled before attacking again. Azumi and Shinitsu. The two had come to a stalemate. They weren't getting anywhere, so Shinitsu decided to question Azumi's motives. I know that we don't always get along, that we've always been somewhat rivals, but I never thought it would come down to this. I considered you my closest friend. Azumi scowled, don't try to act like a saint now. We both know that if you were asked to do this by him instead of me, the roles would be reversed. Shinitsu looked down as she said, him, huh. Kazuki, Yuzuki, and Daisuke. Having stopped for the moment, this was the perfect opportunity to have a little chat. I can't believe you of all people, Yuzuki said. I thought of you like no other, I thought we had something special. Of course you did, Kazuki responded. That's how these things tend to go. It isn't fair to those that it happens to, but. That's some answer, Kazuki, I didn't think you were the type to think that way, Daisuke jumped in. Kazuki looked down as he balled his fists. Smugly, Daisuke said, nothing is as it seems, we all were no more family than you believed, Yuzuki, you looked to replace your lost loved ones with others, and look at how it turned out, the man you loved and thought would reciprocate that love, happened to be someone who only loved and looked out for himself, I led you on because it amused me. Besides, even if I wanted someone to spend time with, why would I want to be with an old hag like you? Who would? I would, Kazuki exclaimed as he charged for Daisuke. Kohaku had risen from her bed, wounds and all. She gathered a number of palace soldiers, had some stay behind to protect her family, and the rest were to follow her. She stepped foot out of the palace ready to do battle. They would lend a hand to those on their side however they could. Shin versus Hiroto. The entire area had been demolished. Trees had been splintered and rocks and boulders had been set to dust. Taking a moment for a breather, Shin thought, his movements are slow when he isn't falling from the sky. If I can keep him grounded, then that makes it easy for me to avoid the rest of his attacks, but, this bastard, he's the worst opponent for me with his defensive technique. I thought that I could wear him down, but this drawn-out battle is starting to get to me as well. He was startled from his thoughts as he heard, Meteor S. Hiroto came crashing down from the sky. The impact created a big crater and shook the earth. Using his great speed, Shin had managed to get away unharmed. As he caught his breath, he thought, I guess that I'll really have to turn it up if I want to finally KO this guy. Hiroto climbed out of the crater to see Shin blazing through several hand seals. He was amazed at the speed but wasn't too surprised. The eerie scraping of Shin's claws was horrible and seemed like a sign of something even more terrible to come. Shin finally stopped and glanced at Hiroto with a psychotic look on his face and in his beady eyes. Hiroto was taken aback by this and how he suddenly began to violently shake in place. Before anything could pop into his head about it, he noticed Shin make a sudden movement. He tried to quickly harden his body with his technique to cover for the cracks in his armor, but, at his dismay, he felt several sharp pains to those openings. The pain forced him to release his jutsu. He then felt more pain in his abdomen as he found Shin standing before him with a sadistic look on his face. Shinitsu vs Azumi. Fire style, streaming flame jutsu. Like a human flamethrower, Shinitsu spit a stream of flame at her once friendly rival. Azumi moved quickly to avoid being burned. She rolled away and ducked behind a tree that was quickly turning into firewood. Azumi cycled through hand seals and jumped from her hiding place. Water style, flowing stream. To counter, Azumi spewed a similar stream of water from her mouth. The two attacks collided, leaving behind a wall of steam. It was then dispersed as the two breezed through it, clashing with their kunai. They bypassed each other as the scraping of their tools sounded. While in the air, Shinitsu turned back to attack. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. 5 small fireballs were blown Azumi's way. She quickly cycled through seals. Water style, Water Wall. Azumi spewed water from her mouth that rose up into a protective wall. It effectively put out the fire, but through it came shuriken. With her defense ineffective, Azumi could do nothing more than cover herself as they tore through her body. Once the threat passed, she looked across the way, but now it's time to put an end to this, Shinitsu yelled. She crashed down on Azumi. She instantly drove a pair of kunai into her opponent's chest as they hit the ground. Shinitsu looked disappointed as the Azumi below her was revealed to be a water clone. She looked up into a tree as she heard Azumi say, "That was pretty good, but not good enough. Now I understand why he came to me instead of you. He not only likes me better, but I also have more to offer when it comes to fighting." She sneered as she, literally and metaphorically, looked down on her rival. Takumi, Kuki, and Yo. All three were struggling to catch their breaths. As they stood across from each other, it was as if they were trying to break the enemy's wall with their menacing scowls. Takumi raised his hand to clean the blood from his nose and undauntedly wiped it on his pants. No signs of any emotion, Takumi began the attack again. Wielding his trident, he pulled no punches as he tried to impale both of his opponents. He swung high, he swung low, he swung all about, but Kuki and Yo wouldn't allow the slightest mistake to end their lives. Takumi swung low and Kuki and Yo took this chance to distance themselves. Kuki flipped over it to the side while Yo flipped back. Takumi began twirling his trident. He then stopped as he reared back and launched it at Yo. Lightning style, current rod. Yo was stunned as the trident was embedded into the tree, barely missing his head. He was then shocked as he noticed a thread connected to the trident, and a tingling feeling was felt. A great surge of electricity was then felt as the tree exploded. Yo was partially saved because of this, but pieces of the tree had carved and embedded into his body. He winced in pain as he rolled over onto his belly. Not even showing any signs of disappointment that his technique was unsuccessful, Takumi reeled in his weapon. Kuki acted quickly. He cut the thread attached to the trident in hopes of throwing Takumi off his game. Like usual, Takumi expressed nothing at this. Kuki jumped into the air, cycling through seals, and tossed a ring of ninja tools around Takumi. Lightning style, electric field entrapment. The area within the circle of weapons, including Takumi, were then lit up with electricity. A slight twitch was all that could be obtained from the stoic warrior. After a moment of consecutive current, Takumi showed signs of the technique getting to him. He jumped out of the circle but landed fairly close. He twitched and grunted slightly as he shakily got back to a vertical base. Ayaka vs. Ayumu. Ayumu had blood trailing from her mouth and lash marks all over her body. From her torn and tattered clothing, as well as the marks on her exposed areas, it was clear that she had been on the worst end of this fight as she spit out some blood. Ayaka, on the other hand, hardly had a scratch on her. "We don't have to do this, Ayumu. If you turn yourself in now, then we could settle this and no one has to get hurt," Ayaka said as she wound up her whip. "You're looking down on me. I know that you're better when it comes to taijutsu, but what about ninjutsu?" Ayumu smirked. "You don't mean." Ayumu cycled through hand seals. As she finished, Ayaka quickly shut her eyes tightly. "Kazuki, Yuzuki, and Daisuke. I admire your spunk, kid, but it was futile from the beginning," Daisuke stated as he dragged a bloody Kazuki across the ground by his hair. "I know you well enough to know that your jutsu has flaws in it, but you have no idea what I'm capable of," he gloated. "Stop this. Don't hurt him any further, Daisuke," Yuzuki pleaded. "How could you do something like this? I always thought that you were a gentle spirit that didn't want harm to befall anyone." Daisuke looked at her and said, "That's a grave mistake you made, and the kid, and the royal family, paid for it. You assumed that just because I use medical jutsu that I wish well on others, but like I said, it's a mistake that will leave you 6 feet under." He pulled out a kunai and twirled it around before setting it to strike. As he was about to drive it into Kazuki's chest, Yuzuki cried out, "Let him go." Let him go. I'll be your opponent. Daisuke stopped and raised his eyebrow in amusement. Clearly intrigued, he didn't go through with his plan. Instead, he flung Kazuki's frame into a tree and smirked at Yuzuki. Takumi versus Kuki and Yo. Yo was still out of commission. It was now all up to Kuki to fend off this threat. Even though he seemed a bit slower, Takumi wouldn't allow it to get to him. He charged, poised to attack with sparks of electricity jumping from his hand. As he neared, wood sprang from the ground and began attacking him. He easily destroyed the wood and jumped back to safety. He showed no expressions as Yamato landed next to Kuki. Azumi versus Shinitsu. Hinata and Sakura arrived just as Shinitsu's attempt to end the fight failed. They informed her that they were there to lend their support. Upset that she was being belittled and dismissed by someone she once thought to be a friendly rival, someone that she still considered her rival, Shinitsu told the Leaf Kunoichi, "I don't need your help with this. I don't want your help. This is a fight between rivals. This is my fight, so leave it to me." The two seemed to understand how she felt. They wished her luck and left to lend their aid to someone who wanted it. Ayaka versus Ayumu. Ayumu finished her seals as Ayaka shut her eyes and ducked behind a tree. Her eyes began glowing red as did a second pair on her forehead. Don't hide from me now, come back out and get a good look at me, it'll make you feel better, Ayumu said. She began approaching. Ayaka felt she had to do something fast. She would have to somehow fight without outlooking at her opponent, but that would be difficult. After cycling through seals, she activated her jutsu, living forest manipulation. Ayumu stopped in her tracks as she noticed something coming for her. It wrapped around her body, scratching her as it did. It lifted her off the ground and prepared to attack even more. Ayumu kicked out her feet. The force from the attacking branch forced her free from the brittle one that once held her. She retreated back to a safe distance. Watching the branches wildly swinging and trying to grab anything near, Ayumu realized, "You're grabbing at air because you don't know where I am. You won't even risk looking at me, will you? Do I frighten you that much?" She snidely remarked. The tree Ayaka was manipulating came to a halt. Still with her eyes closed, she responded, "I've seen you use your jutsu before. I know better than to let myself get caught in your eye technique." Ayumu quietly approached once again saying, "Oh, is that so?" She jumped to try to catch her former fellow guardsman, but there was no one behind the tree. With her 4 eyes, she looked about for where Ayaka could have gone. She heard a rustling in the nearby bushes. She shifted her full gaze to them as something jumped out. "There you are," Kiba said as he and Akamaru appeared. "We were searching for you and the others," Sai added. The two noticed that Ayaka had her kunai up, ready to defend herself with her eyes closed tightly. As they questioned this, and she recognized their voices, she opened her eyes and let out a sigh of relief. "We've come to help you kick those traitors' asses," Kiba stated. "That's good and all, and I really appreciate it, but this one may be out of your league," she told them. Once again they questioned her and she informed them that whatever they do, they shouldn't look into Ayumu's eyes. They peeked from behind their hiding place to see Ayumu's back as she stood over a deer. It convulsed as it began foaming at the mouth but suddenly stopped breathing altogether. Hiroto versus Shin. Shin had a look on his face that could only be described as sickly pleased. He shoved his other claw into Hiroto's body and began cackling as if he had gone mad. He flashed a big toothy smile as he slowly began carving into Hiroto's F. Hiroto tried to stop him but felt weak as his insides were being shredded. Any more and it would undoubtedly be the end of him. Shin smiled even greater as he could actually feel Hiroto's life slowly slipping away. He was savoring it. What's that? Shin wondered. A small swarm of bugs quickly became a big one as they engulfed Shin, attacking him. Now Shin could feel his energy being sapped away. He jerked his claws from Hiroto's body and ran off, leaving the chasing swarm in his dust. Having momentarily lost it, Shin looked up to see both Neji and Shino standing in a tree. Not amused, he cursed, F.X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.